Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Gulfcraft press conference. My name's Justin Ratcliffe. Many of you know me as a fellow journalist, and I'll be mediating the event this evening. You might be aware that Gulfcraft does not have a yacht in the show this evening, or sorry, not this evening, the whole week. And so they thought might be a good idea to organize this conference to investigate the use of composites in superyacht construction, with special reference to the yacht we've just seen, the Majesty 175. I'm lucky, and I believe I was the first journalist to see the Majesty 175 back in the spring when Superyacht Times was invited to make a video of the yacht, and I was impressed for a number of reasons. Not only is she Gulfcraft's most ambitious project to date, I believe she's also the largest composite production boat, LY3 certified, over 500 tons. I'd like to introduce the panel this evening. We have Mohammed Hussein Alshaali, Gulfcraft chairman, Cristiano Gatto, designer of both the exterior and the interior, Kostas Christodoulou, and forgive me, Kostas, if I got the pronunciation wrong, Gulfcraft COO, Peter Southgate, Regional Director, Cayman Islands. We have Martin Redmayne, Chairman of the Superyacht Group, and we'll also be bringing in the captain of the yacht and QC manager, Patricia Caswell, who's sitting just here in front of me. By the way, you can ask questions at the end, but there will be refreshments served. So if you'd like one-on-one conversations with any of the panelists, please stick around, and they'll be happy to respond. So without further ado, I'd like to start with Mr. Chairman. Double question, really. Tell us something about the product strategy behind the 175. Was it market pull, or was it Gulfcraft pushing the market?
Thank you very much. Well, I think it's both. Gulfcraft always follow the customer request. And throughout history, Gulfcraft grew with its customers. We started as a small boat builder, but we keep growing with our customer request, customer demand, with regard to the size, usage, all aspects. And we believe that a few years ago, we believed that we are mature enough to start venturing into a new concept, a new yacht, and something beyond what we used to do for many years. I announced the 175 and the 200 actually in 2016 here in Monaco. And when I talked about building 175 foot and 200 foot with composite, everybody believed either I am crazy or I don't know what I'm doing. Fortunately, we proved that composite can be a very reliable material, and we can use it for a bigger and better boat. Now, the yacht I announced in 2016 was totally different than the yacht we built, as a matter of fact, because since then, my friend Cristiano Gatto came on board, and he changed the exterior, he changed interior, and he took it from 500 gross tonnage to 780 gross tonnage. And that was the biggest change in the one that compared to the one I announced in 2016. So I believe we did an experiment which will change the future of the market of building super yacht.
Thank you. And you built the boat entirely on speculation. What are the perceived advantages, but also the possible disadvantages of building such a large composite boat on speculation?
The advantage that you save on time for delivery. The other advantage, you build the yacht with some kind of freedom. Because when you actually, we know in boat building, especially super yacht building, when you build with an owner, you always restricted. And you have to do a lot of changes throughout. But when you build freely, but you have to build also with experience. You know, you cannot just build a boat in speculation. You have to know your market. You have to know your customer. Actually, when we design the layout of the yacht, I kind of have some customers in my mind. So it is not a full speculation, but definitely saving time, building with freedom. And I think any boat built in speculation is much better than building it with customer. And this is for every yacht, because you put your experience in that boat. But when the customer interferes so much, you have so many changes throughout the build, which affect the quality sometimes, which affect the appearance and the design of the yacht.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cristiano, you were, as we've heard, working for the shipyard, not for an owner.
Yeah.
What was the design brief from the shipyard? It sounds like you changed it quite a lot.
But it was a series of briefing, actually, because we work a lot from day one. We had a lot of meetings looking of the GA. We play around the GA, I think, for 6 months, something like that, to try to make the best out of the volume that was available at that time. And then we start to think how we can improve the volume to maximize the effect of, you know, I think that the GA is based on the passage around, on the way to serve and the way to live on board. And there are a lot of things on my perceptions that are quite different to the boat on the market at the moment, on layouts point of view. And that was, I don't think that I had a briefing, but I think that I had a few days of fishing and a lot of discussions, and it was a journey, it was not a briefing. I think that in the full project.
You said it has an unusual GA compared to other yachts of its size. And one thing I remember is it has 7 guest suites, 2 master suites on main deck, I seem to remember. In what way was it different from other yachts equivalent size?
For example, we was trying to divide it, starting from the crew areas. In my opinion, the crew area of the 175 is a very nice crew area, because you have the crew compartment, you have a compartment separate that can be used in different way. You can separate also the level of your crew or the sex of your crew. And you have the direct access to the lower deck from the part of the crew directly from the lower deck. The service flow, it's quite, I would say, quite harmonic. So after, I think, 1 day, the crew knows already where it needs to go and how they can access to the different part of the boats in a quite high level of privacy for the owner, because that is one of the important things, I believe. When we were starting to design the exterior and the interior contemporary, that helped a lot, because, for example, the exterior stairs on port and starboards in the middle of the ship help the guest to know always where there is a stairs to go from one deck to another one. From the other ones, you have a lot of privacy on the aft. That is another of, and the same wise for the crew. And this one is one of those elements that is not so common, let's say, especially in a vessel of this size. Normally, it's an achievement that you can arrive to have in vessels much bigger than this one.
And something else which is very different from other yachts is that there are 2 galleys, because where the beach club would normally be, there's a full galley. What was the reasoning behind that?
That one is, you need to arrive back to when we studied the layout at the very beginning, we was envisaging these possibilities as one of the options, because it's very useful, especially in the Middle East. and having the second set, or let's say the heavy-duty kitchen on the beach, on the area of the beach club, and having a more, let's say, fancy kitchen on the main deck. That for the, let's say, market like European or American market can be enough, but is not enough at all for the Middle East. So having then, when the customer arrive on board and start to ask about it and et cetera, it was, let's say, in some way, and here is more chairman experience on that. He said, I tell you that we will have the possibility to have a kitchen down there. And that is what we have.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kostas, 20 years ago, I don't think anybody would have seriously envisaged building a 175 yacht out of fiberglass. What have been the major advances in composite technology that allow you to build a yacht or any yacht over 50 meters nowadays?
Major thing is that you can combine materials. So the choice of resins are more, the choice of the fibers are more. Also, the simulation tools that you have to calculate are much improved. So you can do global fair on the object. So you can have a better visibility of what is going to happen. So those tools used to exist before, but now you can rely more on them compared to before. Also, temperatures of, let's say, what we call heat deflection temperature of resins has been improved. Polyester used to have 65, 67 degrees. Now you can use polyester with the same strength, but with much higher heat deflection temperature. It's the temperature that starts to be soft. So that's very important when you try to apply thermal structural fire protection on the structures. That's something that you don't apply on vessel under 500 gross tonnage entirely.
And you still used hand laying up techniques, I believe.
The hull is too big to vacuum it. So we combine. So a lot of areas are vacuumed, and some, for example, the core has been vacuumed to have a perfect bonding. The decks are vacuumed, but the rest is hand layout.
This is a question for you, Kostas, but also maybe for Peter. What are the technical challenges during the construction? Also with regard to fire integrity, flag, class, and so on. Who would like to respond first? Kostas?
I can speak about the yard transition to this, and Peter can speak about the technical part of it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the major challenge with building a vessel over 500 gross tons, of course, is that every structural member has to be insulated. Unlike a vessel under 500, you're not looking for steel or equivalents, and achieving steel or equivalents is quite difficult with GRP. I was involved in a project back in the early 2000s where it was probably the first vessel over 500 gross tons that was built to the large yacht code, and achieving the structural fire protection requirements of the structure, bearing in mind that every deck panel, every bulkhead now has to be insulated in order to prevent the softening of the resin, as Kostas has mentioned, and then, of course, losing structural capability. So that's one of the big challenges. And things like staircases. On a normal steel vessel, you would build a steel framework. On a GRP vessel, building GRP stairs, you then have to reinforce those with steel. So you lose some of the benefit of having a GRP constructed staircase. Integrating fire doors into a GRP structure is also challenging because obviously you're trying to maintain the fire integrity of the bulkhead and using a steel door in a GRP constructed bulkhead. So it's not without its challenges. And I guess finally one of the other issues is you essentially now have to insulate both sides of the materials, which you wouldn't normally do with a steel or aluminium vessel. So if you think about it, it adds quite a bit of weight in terms of the insulation that you have to put into the vessel in order to achieve those requirements.
Costas, did you want to add anything to that?
I want to describe the transition. So a yard is used to build vessel under 500. That means rules there are not as detailed as on vessels over 500 and not as strict. So the discipline of the engineers on the design desk has to be changed, but also the discipline of the people in the production floor has to be changed. Now, you have to be careful of what we are doing because the surveys by the surveyors will be different. Will be more strict, more precise. So this discipline remains in the shipyard. And now it's applied to vessels that they don't need it, but the people just know how to do it, and they do it. The other thing is that we have to go through a lot of tests, because on GRP, there are no standards like the steel, that you know that on steel, I put that insulation, I achieve A60, B15, whatever. On the vessel, on the composite vessel, your lamination schedule defines your certificate. So you cannot have unified certificates to cover all lamination schedules. So for everyone, we have to do a test. The same for the penetration. So went up more than 18 or 20 tests. Most of them successful, some of them failed, and we repeat them. So all these are assets of the shipyard now. So we changed our building methods to be according to the certificates that we achieved to have. So that's what happened. So it's not that we finish a vessel under these specs. All these are applied to the smaller vessels now.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think one point that we glossed over was that the advantages in the first place of building in fiberglass rather than steel and aluminium.
First of all, I'm glad to have this discussion. We are not saying this against that, whether it's aluminum or steel or fiberglass or composite. I mean. Each one has its advantage and disadvantages. But let me speak about the advantages I know of the composite because that's my experience. Number one and the most important thing is lighter weight, which makes you need a smaller engine, makes you go into need less draft, less fuel consumption, longer range, so many things with regard to lighter weight itself. The second advantage is it's less maintenance. You know, fiberglass is much, much less maintenance compared to steel or aluminum. I don't know, of course, there are more experienced people here than me, but as I know, just making an anti-fouling for aluminum is a nightmare. You know, with fiberglass, you don't have that. So it's much less maintenance. You don't have to paint every time. You don't have rust. You don't have, especially inside. That's something you don't see when it's rusted. Fiberglass doesn't have that. The third one is a better insulation because much quieter compared to steel and aluminum. But for certain regions, like Florida, for example, like in the Middle East, like Asia, Africa, here I think fiberglass is superior because it resists the salinity, the humidity, and the heat, which is the worst enemy of the marine environment. And I think here where the advantage of fiberglass come clear. Maybe you will ask me, what is the disadvantage? The disadvantage, the one I know of, only one disadvantage, maybe others have more, that it is lighter weight. So in an anchor, it could swing more than the heavy steel hull, for example. But otherwise, of course, I'm glad, as I said, to have this debate, and we are all learning here. And we can, of course, learn from each other. Anybody who can argue Otherwise, we are also willing to hear that. And I'm glad that Gulfcraft team under Talia and her colleagues organized this panel, because that is it's not just building this or building that. It's what's the experience. We are here to speak about our experience. As Costa said, what are the challenges we had? What will be the future of building and composite? Now, I want to emphasize that composite is not only fiberglass. We have carbon, we have so many different components. And this is all we have also. It has advanced since we started. We started 40 years ago. This material has changed tremendously since that time. Therefore, I think it is the material for the future.
Thank you. Martin, you have your finger on the pulse of the industry. Have you had the opportunity to gauge the market reaction from brokers or owners or competitors to building such large yachts in fiberglass?
It's an interesting question, Justin. It's not a survey or a research project we've done yet, but I think it's something worth doing, because obviously when I look at the project and how it's come out, it's like there is now a very viable alternative within the size range, which becomes exciting for lots of reasons. I'll go into the reasons in a second. Your comment about the technology and the material evolution is so valid. The reason why Airbus and Boeing are using composites is because it's quieter in the air, it's lighter weight for fuel efficiency, and there's so many other benefits in terms of the even flexibility. When the wings are flying, they actually flap almost to create different air movement for efficiency. So what we're trying to look at here from a future of super yachts is, can we drive efficiency in the way boats are operated? And lightweight is a very big driver in how boats are more efficient, fuel efficiency, even to the point of just where you want to go with the boat. Because we've done some research on migration, and a typical yacht, even in the 50-meter range, is only cruising 50 nautical miles at a time. It's very short distances with guests on board. So it's silent operation, fuel efficiency, and even that comfort is a critical part of the evolution of our next generation of client. So I think that's a big part of the GRP composite story. Also, I think in terms of the future of composites, it's going even more environmentally friendly. People will still talk about composites being part of that, the origin of composites being a fuel or oil-based process, but there's so many more hybrid materials coming in which are going to be more environmentally friendly to even reduce that impact or that problem. So it's a very fascinating topic. But going back to the 175 as a project today, you're calling it a production yacht, is that correct? Just so I get the language right, it's a production yacht. Can I ask a very direct question as to, compared to a 50-meter steel or aluminium, what is the price difference? I'm allowed to ask that question? Just percentage terms.
As I said, I think it is will be a little bit cheaper, especially with the price of material today. Of course, when we talk about equipment is all the same.
Yeah.
But when regard to the material itself, I think it is less cheap, much cheaper, or a little bit cheaper.
It's better value.
Better value.
Because I think the point is that we're seeing a lot of new clients coming in to the market looking for a more efficient buying process. Almost being able to say, I love that, I want one too. So it's almost off your production process. And I think that's another part of the market that's learning to go into your small Sunseekers, Princesses, Ferrettis, etc. The step up into steel boats is a very big step, mentally and financially. So having that transition to 50 meters into GRP becomes almost a comfort zone.
I think linked to that also is the speed of construction. How does that
100%,
compare
100%.
to steel and aluminium? I know the 175 was 4 years, but that involved also the design process and building the mold, correct?
And probably learning as well.
I think the advantage that you are building out of the mold. So first of all, you have identical. There is no mishap here. But of course, it is much faster to build out of the mold compared to steel or aluminum. But I believe that maybe Costas have the experience of both, and he can talk because I have only one side experience. maybe you can give the comparison of that.
Time of construction, metal versus composite.
Having a mold, you can be much faster on the hull and on the superstructure. So
How much faster, again, in percentage terms?
if we only calculate the hull, I can say at least 6 months.
But I think what's interesting, Kostas, when you have a production process like you've developed over the years, it should get faster and faster and more efficient. Like Boeing are producing BBJs in 10 days, from green hull to delivery. So your process is to increase capacity through a production process, whereas yachting is all about customization. And you're almost creating a next generation of manufacturing, which I think is almost where the market needs to look at. How could it take... There's a lot of new people, new clients, who can't understand why it takes 4 years to build something that is the same each time, or should be similar each time. So you're almost trying to push the market into what the aircraft industry's done for the last 25 years, is efficiency and manufacturing process.
On composite building, you can do parallel operations
Yeah.
that you cannot do on steel and aluminum. You cannot weld here and put interior on the other side. But that's something, or pulling cables. So you have to finish the welding, sandblast, paint, and continue.
Yeah.
On the composite, it's not like that.
Yeah.
You can do parallel operations. So the management of the disciplines, of the trades, can be better.
Yeah.
So if you build in parallel, you can have some of your electricians there, some there, in different projects. So you can do parallel things that in the metal vessel you cannot do. You must have all your steel workers here and after move them all there. So you don't have hot jobs. So that saves you a lot.
Thank you. There's another question that I wanted to ask related to what we've just been discussing, and that's the supply chain, which is becoming more expensive post-COVID especially, and the procurement of materials like steel and aluminium. Kostas or Martin, I mean, do you think that's an additional driver for the use of composites in superyacht construction?
Okay, do you want to comment? No, I think what's interesting is it's very easy to say that steel is expensive and aluminium is expensive. Everything's got more and more expensive. What is more important to recognize is, and I'm saying this from an industry perspective, education is key. What are the properties of GRP or composite versus steel and aluminium? Because I think there's a lot of misinformation or misunderstanding of the value proposition of GRP or composite. And the industry is almost fixated by steel and aluminium and don't really look at the differences closely enough. Certainly on an operational point of view, a captain or engineer likes to be on a steel boat. They feel it's heavy, solid, and stable. They don't understand that they can get that with a different benefit from a GRP project.
Right, on Peter, yes.
I was going to say, I mean, one of the fundamental differences, and I think this impacts on the supply chain, is, you know, steel and aluminium, you're buying milled steel, you're buying from an approved mill. With a composite, you know, excuse the expression, you're building it out of a bucket. So the resin, the raw materials, and each panel is made individually. So it shouldn't really be an impact, because essentially, as long as you've got a good quality system, you've got a good access to the resin and the fiber materials, you know, and the repeatability of the product is there, because, you know, you've got a quality system, you know what your layup is, you know what your resin materials are, so it shouldn't really be impacted by the supply chain in the same way that access to steel plates or stiffeners or materials would be.
Okay. Martin, you said something interesting there, that most captains on a yacht of this size would probably prefer to be on a steel and aluminium yacht. But I'm going to bring in Patricia here, because what has your experience been as captain of the Majesty 175? How did she perform in sea trials, and how has she performed since then? How many hours do you have on the engines currently?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I think we've completed up to 10 sea trials now for varying reasons. Our first 3 were purely technical, just to push up the systems and test everything. One of the things I was expecting when we came off the dock the very first time is there's such a high windage area, such a shallow draft, and I was sort of expecting...
What is the draft? 2 meters something?
2.1.
2.1.
2.2 on the rudders.
Yep. So I was sort of expecting a bit of difficulty manoeuvring, to be honest. In Golfcraft, in our shipyard there, we have a lot of cross current that you can set your clock to in the afternoon, a lot of beam on windage. But what we found extraordinary right on that very first trial is the ease of manoeuvring. Because of the lightweight construction and the shallow draft and the power ratio that we have on board, she was extremely manoeuvrable. We were able to navigate in a very shallow, narrow channel, and I've had no problems at all. I've managed to get the boat right up into the mangroves for some photo shoots. I've been having a lot of fun with it, so it's truly extraordinary.
Thank you, Patricia. Mr. Chairman, the first yacht is always the hardest, isn't it? And it is a learning process. On the second, or possibly third or more hulls, what would you do differently? And maybe this is a question also for Cristiano.
I don't think we will do much a lot of things differently. Maybe we will follow, maybe we'll change the paint or the color, you know. But I believe the 175 was a good experience for us on the yacht. It's a big challenge, but also a good experience. What we would change, take care some of the challenges which we had in the first yacht, especially the class issues, which is the most important challenging thing. Knowing about insulation, knowing how to test the panels, these kind of technical things I think we will change. Otherwise, with regard to the design itself, with regard to the interior, to the equipment, we are very happy with what we did. The other thing we want to change is the time. Maybe we have to save time in building the yacht. As you know, first yacht, not only first for us, first for the material, first for everybody, took a longer time than we expected or we planned. But at the end of the day, it was a very rewarding experience for us on the yacht.
And I asked Martin about the market reaction in general. What has the reaction been from your own client portfolio?
The market reaction was very positive, and only for those who saw the yacht or who could see her running. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the yacht did not have enough exposure in the region or worldwide. So I believe by the time the yacht is delivered, which will be hopefully next week to the owner, and people see her running and maybe test her, they will know that she is worth actually having.
And will we have the opportunity to see the yacht at any stage in a boat show?
We all hope so. You know, once you deliver, you don't know, but we hope that we will be able next year that we will have the opportunity to show her somewhere in Europe.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, go for it,
Mr.
Martin.
Chairman, can I ask you a question about the Gulf region and in terms of the market potential? There's so many things happening across the Red Sea, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Oman, etc. It's all starting to become very interesting. How much of that market is becoming focused on this 175?
I think a lot of focus on the 175 from the market, but everybody wait until the yacht is delivered, which is normal because until yes, we showed her in Dubai last, I don't know, January was it? May. Sorry, it was very hot. Yeah, we showed her in Dubai, but in a private event. We couldn't invite people because of the pandemic situation. So once she is out and going, I believe we will have a lot of. We're now talking to so many people, but we will have, I believe, a lot of positive response and hopefully marketing opportunities.
Yeah. Thank you. Kostas, can I ask you the capacity to build multiple 175s? What are you expecting in the future to be your build program, number of boats? Is there a forecast?
We want to have each time at least one in the floor. That's the plan
Okay.
of this size, together with everything else, of course.
Yeah.
How many yachts do you currently have in build?
He forgets.
We have 140, 122, 95, 105 now.
We have 5 superyachts under construction right now. We have 5 superyachts under construction, and we have another 10 orders to be delivered until 2023.
Unless the panel would like to make any other points, Kostas?
I want to highlight some side benefits that we achieved because of fire integrity. Trying to achieve fire integrity, meaning 900 degrees from one side, 55 on the other, or 65, you end up with 4 or 5 layers of insulation, thermal insulation. This thermal insulation has a tremendous noise insulation. So the voice is absolute quiet. And Patricia can speak about that. And we have incidents of some people inside say, why you don't move? Say, we are full speed 10 minutes now. So, and that's on the main deck. So in the wheelhouse, you don't understand if the engine is running or not. And another thing that usually comes when we speak about composite vessel is the strength. There is always a question mark. Of course, as Mr. Martin say accurately, they use those materials on the aeroplanes. So there is no question mark. So in this vessel, of course, we ran simulations and we went over the calculations, but Bureau Veritas very accurately asked something that they normally ask it on longer vessel, over 70, 80 meters. They ask longitudinal strength analysis while the vessel is inclined. Very strange for such a 54-meter vessel, but we pass it. So the vessel was successful on that. And Patricia can describe the stiffness of the vessel plus the stability, while the surveyor asked her to make hard turn at full speed. She was looking to me, say, do it. And she can explain what happened.
I think one of the really interesting things that happened, especially during class surveys, well, first of all, on the very first sea trial, we did all the initial tests without stabilizers so that we could really push and we could understand how she was feeling. And I managed to test it and feel it and be happy and so comfortable with it that we were doing full helm over 360-degree turns without stabilizers on that very first trial. So it's quite remarkable to understand the stability and how she was handling. I was feeling very comfortable with it. So then once we moved into our class surveys, it caused quite a lot of entertainment in the bridge, especially our crash stops. And this comes down to the longitudinal strengthening. To go at 17 knots, full RPM ahead, and a crash stop astern, it's quite a unique feeling that the vessel just sort of stops, sits upright, and then we were doing 8 knots astern. And the class surveyor literally just looked at me and he said, "Did that just really happen?" I was like, "Yeah, it really did." It's just extraordinary.
Thank you, Patricia.
Justin, can I
yes,
just add? I mean,
yeah.
I think, just we were talking about lightweight, but I think it's just important to mention that lightweight doesn't mean that it's not strong. They build minesweepers out of GRP for a very good reason. So lightweight does not mean that it's not strong. So I think that's I wouldn't want people to go away with that impression. Thank you.
Very valid point. I think that probably wraps it up. I know some of you have other appointments, but we do have time for some questions if there are any questions from the floor, or if you prefer, as I said at the beginning, there will be refreshments, so you can talk to these gentlemen one-on-one. Any questions straight away?
I'm very glad to be with you here to celebrate this beautiful masterpiece. And my question to His Excellency, if he consider this is a beginning to build a bigger yacht using fiberglass materials, or this will be the end of story?
Excellent question. Yeah, how big can we go in GRP?
We will go as much as GRP and composite will allow us. We
Diplomatic answer.
no, we did a test actually. We did this test on 61 meter composite, and we are comfortable to go for it. Now, the other question, will the market accept it? I think we will wait and see when we see the reaction on the 175. We will evaluate the market. But we have no issue going up to 60, 62 meters. We did the study, we did all the testing before, and that is before I announced the 175 and the 200 in 2016. So we can go immediately there. Now, about the bigger, we have to do more tests and more evaluation.
And have those tests or analyses included class in the conversation?
Yes, definitely. We are talking about the strength, you know. That is the most important. And longitudinal strength and tensile strength, we have no issue.
Thank you very much. I'd like, oh, we have a question. Yes. Does someone have another microphone? They do.
David Robinson from IBI. Can I ask, you said you were talking to several people following the 175 completion. Have they been asking for just the 175 or larger yachts?
They are being asking for larger yacht. Every yacht owner is always looking for a larger yacht, as you know. But we are talking here specifically about number 2 and number 3 of 175.
How large, may I ask, have they been asking for?
No, I have a question this morning. Can I build 70 meter? This morning here in the show. I said, you know, I have to research it. I cannot answer immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Justin?
Yes, Mark.
Peter, from flag perspective, how big do you think they can go? Because you did Mirabella, which was 70 meters.
Yeah. So I mean, and I don't think. Well, we wouldn't put a finer point on it, but I think it. Yeah, I think 70 meters is pushing it just from a longitudinal strength viewpoint. So I think that would be the extreme. But who knows with improvement in materials over time. Who knows? But yeah, I think around at the current technology, I would say probably 65, 70 meters would probably be around the limit.
Yeah. Which is plenty big enough. If you want bigger, you have 2 boats.
Any more questions from the floor? No? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank the panelists because I think they provided us with a lot of information. And I'm sure the journalists will be happy with that and they'll have something to take away with them. Please stick around. There will be refreshments served. Thank you for attending and thank you once again to the panelists. Good evening.